Podcasting from beautiful Leesburg, Virginia. Welcome to the Music Educator podcast, bringing you tips, tricks, and practical advice that you can use tomorrow. Here's your host and fellow music educator, Bill Stevens.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Music Educator podcast. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. My name is Bill Stevens, and today's episode is Season 2, Episode 8. At the time of this recording, we are currently in the pre-school year school days. We're going through a number of professional development workshops and meetings, just getting to know the new staff, reconnecting with the old staff, getting ready for our kids, which are coming really, really soon. Can't wait to see my band kiddos. And today we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about procedures to get the year started here. And today's focus is off of a blog article off of the forthemusiceducator.com blog website entitled Student Procedure for Entering the Classroom. And as you know, students are essentially doing procedures every step of the way. They're learning step-by-step little processes that they end up putting together, and sometimes they're evaluated on these, how well they actually fulfill these processes, especially in music. And you deal everything from the lower level, like lists, and then you start to go a little higher level thinking, categorize, synthesize, and judgment. And it's an amazing feature, but sometimes we forget about just the simple things, the things that really do make a difference. And it doesn't just apply to the music classroom, but it definitely affects the music classroom. So today, with Student Procedure for Entering the Classroom, I want to go ahead and just kind of point out the simplicity and importance of this particular feature. One of the first routines of the day is when we observe our awesome students entering our classrooms. And having a student procedure for entering the classroom can certainly improve the tone of instruction for the remainder of class. The standard to which you reinforce this simple procedure can have a rippling effect and define your program, whether it's short-term, an hour, or long-term, for the rest of the year or even years. Can you afford not to have a procedure for your students entering the classroom? Music classrooms are unique in the sense that we just naturally make sounds and we work, and sometimes we work in large groups. And if no procedure is laid out for students to follow, the result could be unusually loud, rowdy, and probably late attendance. Some students are just naturally well behaved, whereas others lack the guidance to know better. Often our jobs as educators is character development, and we can't stress that enough. We have students at all levels of SES, and we have to be there for them. Personally, I work in a city school system in which, half of our group is, middle class, but the other half, free and reduced lunch. Some of our students actually have to work to help pay rent, and it's kind of a tough situation. So you never really know what's going there, and sometimes they don't get the interaction with their parents or their guardians like they really need to be. And so it's not entirely the student's fault. In fact, it's ours as adults to make sure that undesirable behavior doesn't happen. Some students are naturally well behaved, whereas others lack the guidance to know better. Now, is it truly the child's fault if they don't know how to enter your musical sanctuary? And I want you to just think about this for a second. A lot of times, our students don't even get to spend quality time with their parents, especially if they're in situations where there's poverty and the parents have to work 3 jobs. It's what we do. We are part of their family, and we are their shining light many times. If you've never nurtured a student in the sense that what is right, what is wrong, how to do things, you don't practice it, it's really not their fault. We have to model for students. It needs to be practiced, and it needs to be mastered. It doesn't have to be hard. I was recently listening to an audiobook, and I can't actually remember the name of the book. However, one of the themes in the audiobook was that you don't have to be incredibly amazing as a teacher. You just want to strive to do the common things uncommonly well, and your program will certainly prosper. Modeling procedure. Music teachers often have some sort of structure for their students. Some require students to come in calmly, get their instruments, and warm up before the director makes announcements. Others complete an activating strategy that would require the student to do some kind of worksheet or some short activity. And whereas others classes may begin by just directly warming up and starting rehearsal. Regardless of what you do with your students, they need to know when, what, why, and how of entering your classroom is. They need a procedure. And to start, review the student procedure with them. Be sure to model your expectation of them. Do this physically. And the expectation can be demonstrated really quickly. Highlight the essential aspects of the process and let them know if you have any pet peeves. Check for understanding. So now you want to check for student understanding. Do more than just to ask if they understand it. Rather, have them explain what the process is in steps. If there is a question about the student procedure, be sure to address it. Finally, the 3 words we say the most: practice, practice, practice. Now it's time to physically have students demonstrate the procedure for entering the classroom. Instruct students to pick up their belongings, leave the classroom, and wait for the signal. Next, have students walk back into the classroom as if class were about to start. Now reflect with the students. Talk about what they did right and what was wrong. Did everyone come in quietly, or were some people yelling? Were belongings just thrown into the room, or were they placed in the designated locations? Did students come into the class ready to learn, or were they more interested in socializing with their friends? And this is very common. A lot of times students come into the classroom and they'll loiter a little bit, talk to their friends, and they don't come in with a purpose. That's one of the things we need to always emphasize. Work with a purpose. Do your job, and we should do ours. We can't be good role models if we don't do our job first. Once you've practiced, once you reflected, do it again. Practice for mastery. It is unlikely that every student entered the room precisely the way outlined in the procedure. That is to say, be clear how you want the class to improve. Practice the process again. Most importantly, practice the skill until everybody can successfully enter your classroom correctly with little to no prompting. A few final thoughts. In conclusion, entering the classroom is a process that must be practiced. This is just like if you are practicing an instrument, singing, keeping time, or even just composing music. Setting the standard and practicing behavioral skills are necessary for having a productive rehearsal. By transferring this simple approach to teaching, you will build your program up to be masters of procedures. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I would just want to wish you the best in your new school year. Please feel free to check out our podcast and our blog if you want to find out some new tricks, tips, or just read some interesting articles. With that said, have a great day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Music Educator podcast for the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Please visit the Music Educator blog at www.forthemusiceducator.com for additional posts and music education news. As always, join in the discussion and let your voice be heard by providing feedback at www.forthemusiceducator@gmail.com or leave a Google voicemail at 703-942-9883. We will see you on the next episode of the Music Educator podcast, and remember, music can change the world.